Good afternoon and welcome to the February Ordinary Council meeting. Item 1, welcome to country. Councillor Greg James is an apology, so we won't have that. So we'll move on to item 2 and the acknowledgement. We, Greater Shepparton City Council, acknowledge the Yorta Yorta peoples of the land which now comprises Greater Shepparton. We pay our respect to their tribal elders. We celebrate their continuing culture and we acknowledge the memory of their ancestors. Item 3, privacy notice. This public meeting is being streamed live via our Facebook page and made available for public access on our website along with the official minutes of this meeting. All care is taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, it is assumed that your consent is given in the event that your image is broadcast to the public. It is also assumed that your consent is given to the use and disclosure of any information that you share at the meeting, including personal or sensitive information, to any person who accesses those recordings or minutes. Item 4, governance principles. Council considers that the recommendations contained in this agenda gives effect to the overarching governance principles stated in section 9(2) of the Local Government Act 2020. These principles are as followed and they're numbered 1 to 9 on page 6 of the agenda. Councillors, page 7 of the agenda, item 5, apologies. There's a recommendation there. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion?
Thank you, Mayor Saley.
Councillor Adam.
Shall I read out the recommendation?
That might help.
That the apology from Councillor Greg James be noted.
Thank you. Can I have someone second that? All in favour? Motion carried. Item 6, declarations of conflict of interest. Councillors, do we have any conflicts this afternoon? No. Item 7, confirmation of the minutes of previous meeting. Are there any minutes of the previous meetings opposed? No, there is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor move that?
I'll move that the minutes of the 20 December 2022 council meeting and the 7 February 2023 additional council meeting as circulated be confirmed.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Can I please have someone second that motion? Councillor Ladson. All in favour? Motion carried. Item 8, public question time, nil received. Item 9, deputations and petitions, nil received. Item 10, Chief Executive Officer reports, nil received. Item 11, Community Director, nil received. Councillors, we now go to page 8 of the agenda, item 12.1, contracts awarded under delegation, December 2022 to January 2023. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Saley. I'd like to put forward the recommendation outlined on page 8 that the council note that the contracts awarded under delegation pursuant to the formal tender process for the reporting period, and 2, note the request for tender advertised but not yet awarded.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Can I please have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Spinks.
Thank you. I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Saley. Yes, as we do with most months, and this one covers both December and January for a double month because we didn't have a meeting last month, to go over the contracts that have been awarded under delegation. As outlined, the ones that have been awarded, some exploratory study regarding the GV Trails, Monash Park, footpath renewal program there, Marlborough Drive, the development there, the road and the upgrade there. I've been along Marlborough Drive there, and there's quite an extensive amount of work, the drainage, etc., that needs to be done there. And of course, obviously the economic development, visitor economy and major events as well. So they had been awarded to the various tenders, and it's been done. Interesting to note too that requests for tenders advertised but not yet awarded, and it's been sent out. And of course, one being the Murchison Recreation Reserve, which has had a bit of publicity of late in regards to that particular reserve. And it's good to see, and it had already been budgeted for, which it may be sort of missed in the narrative a little bit, but it's a tender currently under evaluation of I think about $80,000 for the contract for the detailed design of the Murchison Recreation Reserve Pavilion, so that's been out there as well. And of course, construction of 5 of the landscaping along McClellan Street, Mooroopna. I know a number of, given the floods that we've had there, and a number of the retailers who I see frequently, who remind me not not to forget McClellan Street, well, they'd be happy to know that that's under evaluation as well with that particular tender. The last one, I just want to make mention there, the contract of 2281, the design and construction of the irrigation renewal at Ferrari Park in Mooroopna, had not been awarded as the tenders that received were either non-conforming or exceeding the allocated budget. I understand after speaking to those directors, etc., in that area, is that it is under review in the scope of efficiency, so it hasn't been forgotten. We will look at that again.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sally. If I may just quickly add that I think we're accused over many years of sometimes being Shep-centric, but when I look at these contracts, it's good to see that they're spread out amongst the municipality. Merch, Ardmona, obviously, and Mooroopna, so that's just good to see that we're getting a good spread of our work across the municipality.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No. Councillor Brophy, any closing comments?
No, thank you, Mayor Sally.
Go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried on opposed. Councillors, we now go to page 11 of the agenda, item 12.2, 2022-23 quarter 2 forecast review. There is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'll move that the council receive and note the revised forecast identified by the 2022-2023 quarter 2 forecast review.
And can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Summer. Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, this is a review that obviously every 3 months, and I note that the Chief Executive Officer is of the opinion that a revised budget is not required. That is, that there is no extraneous items that need to be identified at this time. There's a couple of issues that I think are important, and the second quarter forecast review projects an accounting surplus of 28.11 million. However, I don't want anybody to be jumping up and down and flying to the moon over that, because the adjusted underlying surplus will be much down from that. But that accounting surplus was down 13% from the first quarter, and I think that probably reflects what went on during the floods, etc. It's mainly due to a reduction in capital grants, and especially the Friar Street intersection and the Railway Parade intersection upgrade. We're putting that into a future financial year. In terms of the balance sheet, the working capital, that is current assets as a percentage of current liabilities, is projected to be 153% compared to 160 in the first quarter. However, that's still well above the 128% that we have been working on. So, but I would suggest that once again, as we get towards the next part of the year, that working capital ratio will certainly come down. The cash flow statement is projected to be up 2.55 million as a positive, up to $22.5 million, or 12.7% from the quarter 1 adopted forecast. The loans and borrowings has remained steady at 21.2, and that seems to remain that way over the period, and going into the future, let's hope that that's steady as also. The capital works expenditure has decreased by nearly $5 million since the first quarter adopted forecast, is mainly due to the deferral, as we said before, of Friar Street and the Railway Parade upgrade. The renewal and upgrade expenditure as a percentage of depreciation is a bit lower than is at 139%, and whilst that is lower than the first quarter adopted forecast of 153%, it's still above that magical 100%, and I think we must be in a position at all times to remain there. There's no need to go into all the other figures. Councillors have it bit by bit. That's all I've got to say, and I'm going to be asking that the recommendation be agreed to.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Sally. Even though this Chief Executive Officer doesn't think that the revised budget is required, the actual recommendation does state that it is a revised forecast. So it's there's still some changes in there. So just going through it, it was interesting to see that there is a line item for Katandra West Hall, which is a very controversial thing, but the line item is zero, and it has still remained at zero, and that is a bit of a disappointing outcome, and I hope for a resolution on that soon, so it could be either taken off or something might be done about it. And I also note that some was set aside about 200,000 for bike jump investigation and design, which is very, very pleasing, but it hasn't been commenced yet, so I'm looking forward to that. And there was also some set aside for Botanic Gardens works, which has been commenced, including the car park later on, which was wonderful. And as Councillor Brophy mentioned earlier, contrary to recent media articles, we have allocated 80,000 for the Murchison to Lambar Community Hub design, and we will further assess funding opportunities for them at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Abdullah.
Thank you. I just want to sort of clarify the overall purpose of this particular report. This is a legislative requirement for us to prepare every 3 months to compare our adopted budget with our actuals. And then based on that, we come up with the variance, and also we forecast for the end of the year. So ideally, we would want to see every time a positive variance for revenues, which means that our revenues, actual revenues are more than what we had budgeted for. And we also want to see a negative variance for expenses, which means our actual expenses are less than what we had budgeted for. And of course, we monitor all our underlying operating results, and we also, at the operational level, our staff, our managers, they review all the forecasts and review all the major events, and then adjust the forecast based on that. So about this underlying operating result, although the report is saying that our operating, that we have an accounting surplus, but the forecast is saying that our underlying operating result is still a deficit. So it's not a surplus, but that deficit has slightly improved compared to what we were at the adopted budget position at time. So that budget, so that deficit has improved. Like it was, according to our adopted budget, it was $21.61 million, and according to this forecast, we have our deficit reduced to $18.28 million. So it looks like a positive thing, a slight improvement, but let's not forget what our end goal should be. And our end goal should be to convert this deficit, accounting operating deficit, into an accounting operating surplus. So I believe that the leadership team and all of us will aim to achieve that operating underlying operating surplus in our near future. So that's all I wanted to highlight. Thank you.
Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No. Councillor Dobson, any closing comments?
No, thank you.
Very good, councillors. We'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 16 of the agenda, item 12.3, which is the January 2023 monthly financial report. There is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Councillor Dobson.
Thank you, Mayor Starley. I will move that the council receive and note the January 2023 monthly financial report as attached.
Thank you, councillor Dobson. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Brophy.
I second that motion.
Thank you, councillor Dobson. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Starley. Just a few issues that I think are important. The adjusted underlying surplus is 7.5% above the budget, but it is projected to be 5% below budget at year's end. And I think, as Councillor Abdullah had just mentioned, I think whilst this is a historic accounting exercise we're going through at the moment, what's coming up in the future, I think, will determine where we are. This equates to around $18 million deficit after deducting capital grants and contributed assets, which was about $47 million. So I think we've got to take a very sober look at where we are. The pleasing statistic is that loans and borrowings remain in line with forecasts of 22.6% against a budget of 21.2%, and we must keep it that way. That's about equal. If we can flatline loans and borrowings, I think we've done a very good job. Current assets, which I do point out at this stage, is mainly debtors, and that is rates to be brought in, and I'm always dubious, or not dubious, but I'm always careful about that area. But the current assets as a percentage of current liabilities is 219% against the budget of 124.6%. And again, I think the 124.6, if we can maintain that, very good. But 219, I think, is a bit of an inflated figure going forward. I think it will be much less than that. Rates and charges, and I'll just refer to what I've got here. There it is there. Rates and charges is showing a high year-to-date adopted forecast of 86.6 million and a year-to-date actual of 87.2 million balances due to the full amount of the 2022-23 rates being raised in July of 22. So that, when you look at those crossover accounting figures, it does inflate it somewhat. Reduction in statutory fees, user charges, I believe are mainly due to the floods and the COVID restrictions we've had over recent time. What it means is that we haven't been able to use our assets in the manner in which we used to. For example, Aquamoves and Eastbank comes to mind. The upside for council is that there's a little bit more money coming in than what was originally budgeted for. Employee costs are projected to be $1.74 million less due to the various service area closures. The October flood event is projected to cost us a bit over $4 million against a potential income of in excess of $4 million, perhaps 4.9 has been nominated. We do appreciate the support that state government has given us in that space, and we hope that assistance will keep going. Cash flow is very good. There's a 21.69 million inflow and 30 million outflow. But the main part is not in running costs, but in mainly infrastructure, property, plant and equipment costs. At this stage, the cash equivalents have increased. But I can just, a note of warning, and talking privately with a number of councillors over the last little period, we've been alerted to the cost increases such as gas at Aquamoves and insurance covers after the last flood debate. And I think...
Point of order, introducing new information.
Sorry?
From the debate.
But he's speaking to the motion.
Yes, but it's a closing comments. Can't introduce new information.
No, it's no closing comment, it's just...
He's speaking to the motion. That was the previous.
Oh, is he?
So further cost increases such as gas, insurance and maintenance, I think, is going to put one big dent in our cost, in our income going forward. And I just urge everybody to be cautious and let's be conservative. And of course, the other issue that we've got in hand is potential maximum rate capping of 3.5%. And I think that's an issue which will no doubt take a big debate within these chambers.
Councillor Dobson, thank you. Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. I won't go through the analytical or data-driven that Councillor Dobson went through. Mine's a bit more of a narrative in and around it. And of course, the January monthly financial, we're on the back of, that came through 3 months after the major flood event. And of course, the operating position, as it states here, is that council year-to-date performance is favourable compared to the budget, largely due to the receipt of the state government funding in support of flood recovery, for which the expenditure is still being incurred. And this brings me to the point that council-owned assets have taken a hit, and after the enormous work that has been done by council officers, so many of them are now back on track and are being utilised. So well done in that respect, because they've worked really hard to get these up and running as best as they can. But council are not immune, as Councillor Dobson pointed out, to insurance premium increases, nor the insurance claims that are coming our way too. But nor have we forgotten, and all of us councillors haven't forgotten though, the human element that the floods have extolled on our residents, our businesses and also on our farms. That is a financial, a social, emotional and well-being hit that they've all taken because of this particular major event. For many not directly affected, it is business as usual, and therefore provides a real legacy and a real lending hand forward to bring those others through who have been affected. So this narrative will, will be very much linked to monthly financial reports as we go forward in the months ahead.
Very good, thank you, councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion?
Thanks, Mayor Sally. Won't be as long as it involved as councillor Brophy. Just to say that the difference in the last, say, 2 or 3 years as to the last 2 or 3 decades is quite simply COVID, record inflation and the floods. Those 3 things have happened within a short period of time. We're feeling the impacts, obviously, but I think from the report and from the previous report, council's doing a very good job in handling this, and I have every faith that we'll, that deficit will certainly go down over the next 2 or 3 or 4 years potentially. We've done it in the past. As I said, these 3 events that have happened probably haven't happened ever in the past 100 years in such a close proximity to each other. So, as Councillor Dodson said, all the details are there. We're starting to get back on top of things, and I've every confidence in this organisation that we will continue forward.
Thank you, councillor Adam. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No. Got anything left for closing comments, councillor?
Sorry.
No. Very good, thank you. We'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried on the vote. Councillors, we now go to page 20 of the agenda, item 13.1, adoption of the Greater Shepparton Affordable Housing Reference Group Terms of Reference. There is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Councillor Watson.
I'd like to move the recommendation that the council adopt the terms of reference for the Greater Shepparton Affordable Housing Reference Group as attached.
Thank you. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Abdullah.
Second that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Watson, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you. Darling.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, very briefly. Just to remind everyone that this Greater Shepparton's Affordable Housing Reference Group was formed as an outcome of our strategy that was developed, and the group was formed in August in 2021, sorry. So the terms of reference, the initial terms of reference have been reviewed now, and this reference group is very critical, is very important, because as we all know, affordable housing is a very critical issue for our region, and I think for the whole of Australia for that matter. So that affordable housing reference group has representations from different community organizations and community representatives. In this round, the terms of reference have been revised, and there is a recommendation from the Affordable Housing Reference Group for council to adopt these revised terms of reference. Some of the updates in the terms of reference include basically they are recommending an additional 4 member organizations to the group. So Greater Shepparton Foundation, Primary Care Connect, Shepparton Chamber of Commerce, and the Committee for Greater Shepparton. There's a recommendation to have representation from these organizations on the group. And it's quite interesting and quite pleasing to see that so many community organizations are taking this group seriously and are wanting to have a representation. Because perhaps we have seen as an outcome of the previous events in which council had considered some affordable housing options and projects, and there was a very strong interest from the whole community in that project. So as an outcome of that event, perhaps that interest has escalated, but nevertheless, it's good to see that these organizations are now going to be part of the group, subject to the adoption of these terms of reference. The other major revision is about the declaration of conflict of interest, given that this is such a delicate and sensitive area, and a lot of community representations and organizations that are sitting there are also in some way or the other involved in the development of affordable housing. So it's very important to be very clear about the conflict of interest so that there are no complications and arising from the conflict of interests. The third thing is about the councillor representation. So in the initial years, we used to have one council, actually the mayor, who is representing council on this group. But as a part of this updated terms of reference, it has been recommended that 2 councillor representatives be included in that group, whereas only 1 councillor will have the voting rights, but the other councillor can also sit. So I think these are all very positive developments, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this group now performs, given that we have some very, we've got a big task ahead of us in terms of addressing the affordable housing situation and issue in our region. So I am fully supporting these updated terms of reference. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? No. Councillor Latson, any closing comments?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sali. I'd just like to reiterate that council welcomes community feedback around the Rose Street car park proposal, and that can be found on council's website and Facebook page.
Very good. Thank you. Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 24 of the agenda, item 13.2, which is the Shepparton North East Growth Corridor, acquisition of part of the land at 240 Ford Road, Granville. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion?
Mayor Sally, I'll move the motion as printed on page 24. It's quite long. I don't think I'll read it. I think it's all there, clear, unless you want me to read it out.
No. What, if you're happy to just move it as it?
Thank you. Yeah, I'll move that motion.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Adam. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Councillor Adam, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just very briefly, I mean, obviously this is a step we need to take to secure some land for a retardation basin in our northern province there. We're expanding. The executive summary covers it really well. I will read that out because I think that's as much as I need to say. Council officers propose that council acquire part of the land at 240 Ford Road, Granville, for a retardation basin. The land is subject to a public acquisition overlay, 24 Schedule PA 024 for the retardation basin, which is within the Shepparton North East Precinct, shown on figure as shown on the opposite page. So it's something that needs to be done, needs to be acquired, so we can progress with our development in that region.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Adam. Councillor Dobson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Pretty straightforward. It'll be pleasing for all the people who've got an interest out there that council is able to take this particular step. It's the first step, a long line of steps, and when you look at the map, there's a lot of residential properties already in the vicinity, and we look forward to the natural growth of the area.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Mayor Sali. It's, I'm quite happy with the action here. It's just that last line on point 2 of the recommendation, and to take all steps necessary to resolve the consideration or compensation payable to finalise the matter. It doesn't actually, it says that the land will be subject to an independent valuation assessment, but there's no cap on that. And just, I know this comes up often, but there's just noting that in future perhaps it's unnecessary to put that down, because I would assume that if it was over or above the valuation, it would come back to us for discussion, but never assume. That's all I wanted to say on that.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Summer. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No? Any closing comments, Councillor Adam?
Yeah, just to say, in reference to Councillor Summer's commentary, which is quite valid, normally in these situations, the agreed valuation, council usually pays above that. So I think everyone gets compensated adequately.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Adam.
Kind of point.
Now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried on. Councillors, we now go to page 30 of the agenda, item 13.3, which is the adoption of the Greater Shepparton Heritage Advisory Committee Terms of Reference, February 2023. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Mayor Sali. I will move that the council adopt the terms of reference for the Greater Shepparton Heritage Advisory Committee as attached.
Thank you. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Latson. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Only to say that the committee has done a ton of work in going over these terms of reference. I think it came back to the group about 3 times, I believe. They were very diligent. They went through every line. It was really great to see them being so involved in it. And accordingly, we've made some changes based on what they would like. And I believe that the final product is quite adequate. So well done to the committee.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Councillor Latson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sali.
Good, thank you. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? All right, any closing comments, councillor Sutton? Oh, do you want to speak?
No, I was about to vote, sorry, I was jumping the gun.
Any closing comments?
No, thank you, Ms. Ali.
We'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 33 of the agenda, item 13.4, Greater Shepparton Heritage Advisory Committee nomination of community representatives. There is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Ms. Ali. I will move that the council, 1, appoint the following community representatives to the Greater Shepparton Heritage Advisory Committee for the remainder of the current 2-year term, 1st of February 2023, and concluding on 19th of September 2023. David Melinda, Jenny Nightingale, Jill Muir, and Leonie Wilson. 2, formally acknowledge the outgoing community representatives being Bronwyn Cole and Andrew Morecombe, and thank them for their work.
Very good, thank you, councillor Summer. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Hudson. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Only to promote what the committee actually does. I think the people coming in, congratulations and thank you for your service, because it is a volunteer group, but they are so involved. The wealth of knowledge that they have about heritage in this area is astounding. I have learned more on that committee than I have in my whole life in Shepparton. So it's always surprising. There's often controversial things that come up. The diversity of opinion is amazing. What we do need probably is some kind of succession plan to get more younger people involved. So I would urge the community to try and reach out with their feelers and see if anybody on a younger scale, even in school age, would be interested. And I would like to congratulate Bronwyn Cole and Andrew Morecombe for their contribution.
Very good, councillor Summer. Councillor Latson, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'd say well said to councillor Fernsum.
Very good. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Closing comments, councillor Summer?
No, thank you.
No, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 38 of the agenda, item 13.5, which is the adoption of the Shepparton Inner North Local Area Traffic Management Plan, February 2023. There is a recommendation. Can I please have someone put that forward as a motion? Councillor Spinks.
Thank you. I move the recommendation as a motion as it is printed on page 38 of the agenda.
Thank you, councillor Spinks. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Brophy.
I second that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. This is the latest traffic management or version of the traffic management plan ever since what was termed Super School, the Greater Shepparton Secondary College, came to exist. The reality is that there was traffic planning to do. Council has taken on that task with great aptitude, initially making very fast changes and then adapting and rolling with it very quickly to make sure that we got kids to school and that we got people moving through that space as safely as possible. They then went back and revised it and we did it all again. This is the, forgive that I'm going to maybe get this wrong, second or third time we've now done this. And most importantly, it's the reiteration of this process that has allowed the local traffic, local commuters, local pedestrians to contribute and provide their feedback so that we can make sure we continue to improve this area, which has changed so dramatically in such a small amount of time, and make sure that everyone can get to where they need to be safely and conveniently as possible. And from this, we've now had this latest iteration of the traffic management plan come back, and I'm very, I don't know if I'm pleased, but I definitely want to note that the majority of the changes that have come back are pedestrian and cyclist focused. They're very people centered, and I think that's really important. Perhaps in a way disappointing that it wasn't initially what was the focus of planning, but of course we know it is cars and buses that need to get from A to B, and that was the priority, and understandably so to an extent. But now we are able to really look at how it is that people, human beings, actually move around the space. How do our kids walk to school? How are people able to ride their bikes to school? We're able to do that next layer of depth to the way that traffic is managed around the space. And so a lot of the submissions and recommendations that have come back are very centered around traffic calming, intersections, pedestrian crossings, cycling paths, and I'm very excited to see all of those because kids need to be able to walk and cycle to school. That's really essential. And we definitely need more people to be moving around, utilising active transport and even public transport, getting more people on buses. So these improvements will absolutely contribute to those things happening. But noting that it is quite an expensive project, it's probably worth noting that this is one of those moments of, you could call it cost shifting, where it was a project we didn't come up with, but it is our responsibility to make sure our community is safe, so we have to do these works. Council, of course, will be trying to find funding wherever they can to support these works to be done, not just out of our ratepayers' budget. But it has come back at over $2 million to have all of these works done. And I do note that we are looking to allocate them within the 10-year capital plan budget, but I would argue that it is urgent works to be done. I would like to see these works being completed in the earlier years of the 10 rather than the later years of the 10. So I very much support these works, and I support these works being done as soon as possible. Thank you.
Councillor Spinks. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sarley. Well summed up, Councillor Spinks, in terms of what's been put forward to us. And as you highlighted there's a list of about 39 recommendations that have come through here. So that's an awful lot to be considered, and rightly so, probably spaced out over a 10-year period so we can actually look at them, prioritise what needs to be done urgently, and then what can be not cost shifted, but apply for funding and get down in due course. It is interesting that the initial study was done in a more tight, defined area in and around Greater Shepparton Secondary College, and that has now been expanded. And it's been expanded because you've got some real key personnel moving in and out of that area, particularly at certain times of the day. You've got Greater Shepparton Secondary College there, of course. You've got GV Health not far away coming into that zone. Notre Dame College and St Brendan's. You've got Boucher Street and Verney Road School. Verney Road, which leads into it, as GV Grammar, Christian College, and of course the Anglican College, which will be starting up soon. And you're right on the edge, the very cusp, the gateway to the industrial area as well. So you've got all that, including SPC. So there's an awful lot of traffic movement in and around that particular area. I do have some reservations on some of the areas there. Point in note being Corio Street. And Corio Street, which is a beautiful leafy street, has become very, very congested of late because people are trying to obviously avoid some of that area to try and get through. And of course, north of Knight Street, in Corio Street, north of Knight Street, this morning at 8:30 from that particular roundabout, small roundabout that it is there in Corio Street, the traffic was banked back well past Ray Street, nearly all the way up to Balaclava Road. So that was an awful lot of traffic coming in through there.
Point of clarification. That is probably a terrible go to use as an example.
Point taken. Can I say that half an hour later I drove back past there and it was flowing very well. I didn't have to wait very long. So it is point in time stuff, and can I congratulate the actual community engagement and the inclusion that's been done in this has been very rigorous. And I love the way that they've actually done over a period of time, gone back, spoken to the residents that live in the area. I mean, schools, for instance, secondary colleges, maybe I'm showing my age a little bit, but students now drive to school. Some of the senior ones drive to school and have cars, which in my day, there was only one student that had a car, and he'd stayed back 3 years in a row, so that's why he still had his licence. But having said that, there's more and more cars that are actually taking up car space in that area as well. So, well done. It is still a work in progress, but like Councillor Spinks, I'm very happy to see it progress to the stage that we're at. Thank you.
Very good, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Adam.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. This work needed to be done. It's quite comprehensive. The briefing that we received was, again, quite comprehensive, and there was some concern about the timing of some of these, the implementation of some of these measures, but I have no issue with that whatsoever. I'm just more interested, to be honest, about the cost, and I'm happy to see, at the very least, that council officers will investigate Australian and Victorian government grant programs to assist in funding to implement the recommendations of the report, reducing the financial impact on council. We don't know exactly what that will look like and how much we'll get, But the 2 million, 2.3 estimation over so many years, hopefully, if we can get at least half of that amount, I think it's well worth spending. But it's also important to note that I think Councillor Spinks mentioned cost shifting. I mean, these are direct consequences of the new school. If that wasn't where it was, it's there now. I must confess that I thought the traffic congestion would be a lot worse. It's actually better than I thought. So I don't know who to applaud in that respect, whether it's the state government or ourselves or just the common sense of our local drivers. But this will make sure it's even safer and much easier to work through. But hopefully we can get some of this cost on major part funded by the people who made us school there.
Very good. Councillor Adam, are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gladstone.
Yeah, the work that's been involved and put into this is really overdue, I think, in terms of the school's already been open for a while now, and community safety is utmost importance, and healthy living, and as Councillor Sam Spinks mentioned, just being able to get to A to B safely, whether it's whatever your mode of transport, is high importance in my view. So well done on council on the work.
Very good, Councillor Gladstone. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No. Councillor Spinks, any closing comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we go to page 47 of the agenda, item 14.1, which is the curbside waste collection policy. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Abdullah.
I'll move the recommendation on page 47 as a motion, and it says that the council adopt the curbside landfill waste, recycling and organics collection policy as attached.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Spinks.
I'll second that motion.
Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, Ms. Ali, thank you. Very briefly, it is about the curbside landfill waste, recycling and organics collection policy, which has been reviewed and has been updated to reflect the changes that are going to be made to the curbside collection according to our November 2022 Ordinary Council meeting, according to the decision that was made in that meeting. In order to meet the key actions from Victoria's Victoria policy, Council adopted the curbside transition program at the November 2022 Ordinary Council meeting. The curbside transition program consists of 2 programs that are to be delivered, and the period is specified in the policy. The first program is frequency change program, which is where the delivery starts in March 2023. It's a staged rollout program. And the second program is the delivery of purple lid bin glass program, and the delivery is scheduled in March 2024. So our council's policy has been updated to include these programs, and of course it is a result of Victorian Recycling Victoria policy, and we wanted to align our policy with the state's policy. And this policy basically aims to reduce waste to landfill by ensuring that curbside collection services facilitate the segregation of waste at the source and are available to as many domestic residences, businesses, and other groups within the municipality, provided as is economically feasible. So that's the objective of the policy that is stated there. The policy includes many details. It also includes details regarding the standard bin service, public litter bin, and what are the exemptions, in what cases this policy is exempted to certain categories of residences and businesses. What else? Yeah, one of the important things is that, and it is mentioned in the report, is that the updated curbside policy incorporates the findings of recent audit that was done in September 2022. And it found that red lid bins of rural properties have a significant portion equivalent to 34.39% of food and garden organics, FOGO, in the landfill bins. So basically our policy at the moment is making it compulsory for curbside collection to all the urban areas, but it is not compulsory to our rural areas as yet. Sorry, the FOGO bin I'm talking about. So having seen the results of this audit about our food and garden organics in the rural red lit bins, it would be very interesting to see how we are utilizing this finding in updating our policy. Basically, what I mean to say is that I would be interested to see if, based on the audits, whether there'll be any updates to the curbside collection of FOGO bins for our rural areas. Because certain municipalities have made it compulsory to start the FOGO curbside collection service, but it's not compulsory in our municipality as yet. So let's see what happens in the future. Yeah, so that's basically all about the updated policy.
Thank you, councillor Abdullah.
I endorse the policy, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Sure. I feel like, because when I first got on council, I joined the Waste Resource and Recovery Group. I feel like I've been living waste for like 2.5 years now, and it's fascinating. And this process leading to our frequency change and our purple lid bin coming in, and the cash deposit scheme also coming in later this year, I believe, it's really exciting to finally be at this point. We've been talking about it for so long. We've been doing audits, we've been doing briefings, we've been having it come to us and dreaming about waste. And it's very exciting to finally have it actually happening. And I know it is going to be a big change. We are all very aware of this. We are all going to go through that change along with the community. And we're starting with one of the key details of the curbside transition, the frequency change program, is that it is starting in Kyalla and Tatura. So there will be just those 2 localities for the first 12 months while we roll it out, introduce it, learn as we go, make sure that we're getting it right, go along with the community. And then it will be from 2024 that the remainder of the municipality will come on board for this change. But it's finally time to sink our teeth into it. And it's the entire system is to reduce waste. The entire purpose is to reduce waste. I think that has become really relevant, knowing that suddenly from the flood event, the amount of waste that was produced and that filled our landfills has totally changed the landscape all over again. We thought we were, at this point, and now we're all the way over here, and it's just really highlighted that we need to be reducing the waste that's going to our landfills, because they're filling faster than we realised in ways that we didn't expect, in the ways that nobody expected. And as well, in that time, we also saw the collapse of the Red Cycle soft plastics program, which has been really disappointing. So there's more waste than ever going to landfill, and it's really, really essential that we're each individually making the effort and making the changes we need to reduce our own personal waste that we're providing. And this system is going to support that. And council is very focused on making sure that it is a supportive change, that while it is mandated and is coming in regardless across Victoria, that we are supporting it and providing the education needed to make the change as easy as possible and as painless as possible. So I just wanted to go a little bit further into what the actual changes that we're about to see are, and then ramble for a little bit. So thank you.
Very good, councillor Spinks. Thank you. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Ms. Ali. Before I do, can I just clarify one thing? Is it mandated by state or just heavily incentivised?
Mandated.
Mandated. So we have absolutely no choice.
We'll get that clarification if we can offer that.
Call on our Director of Infrastructure to give us an answer on that. Yes, Sally?
So clarification is it's mandated by state government to provide all elements of the curbside service available to all residents.
The extra bin? Sorry, the collection frequency, is that mandated?
Collection frequency isn't, but the target of reduction of the waste out of the landfill by 80% is mandated.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm objecting because my position hasn't changed. I understand that this is a heavily incentivised state direction with some elements of being mandated, but I have concerns. I appreciate what the state are trying to do. It is an absolutely worthy cause and we do need to do something, but one size does not fit all. We have a local responsibility to our local residents, and the concerns I had were the accuracy of our modelling that indicated so much food waste was going into certain bins. We didn't account for any consideration of variables in that. We didn't really account for the burden on households who can't manage that many bins, although obviously we won't have much choice about that. Didn't account for any rubbish dumping or overflow that could come from this. I would prefer if it was deferred until after an assessment of the recent waste audit, just to see if some of those questions could be answered. And I also believe that the onus should be on manufacturers to reduce waste to landfill, not necessarily the users. There's excess packaging everywhere, and people aren't going to not buy a pizza, or they're not going to not get that smartphone just because the manufacturer decided to put a bunch of unnecessary and unrecyclable foam around it. That is where we need to start. So personally, I am not comfortable with this, but I hope I am mistaken. I hope it's not disruptive at all, and I hope it contributes to a circular waste economy. But as it stands, I'm not convinced.
Thank you, Councillor Stummer. Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Dobson.
Thank you, Mayor Sally, and I note that a lot of this has been driven by the state government, so we don't have a lot to say. The only comment I'd make is that I note a briefing session that we had quite recently where our CEO, Mr Harriet, suggested that he would have a zero red bin waste, and he's practicing that now. Now, I'm trying very hard to do that for when this comes in, and we're getting close. But what I am looking forward to is in March 2024 when the purple Linbit, the glass program, comes in.
Oh, very good. I won't go any further with that. Very good. Are there any councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, thank you, Mayor Sally. Just following up on a couple of comments certainly made by Councillor Spinks and Councillor Summer there. I was now going to put in an alteration or an amendment to this particular motion that was put forward, or recommendation put forward, but I've had lengthy conversations with the Director and of Infrastructure and other people, so I'm reasonably comfortable with that. So I'll make a couple of statements in regards to it. The rollout is time sensitive, it's state government compliance, and we aren't a leading council, which we thought we were. We're really back in the pack with the rest of the other councils in terms of the timing of this. We thought we were out in front, but we really aren't. It is a strategic rollout with purpose and with safeguards in regards to that. I would like to see, and I'm sure in the conversations I've had, a period of review once it's initially rolled out, particularly to Kialla and to Tatura, to make sure that any gaps in it or any problems that we've faced in that initial rollout can be rectified and be looked at. My understanding is that during the rollout that's being done simultaneously, so comfortable with that aspect of it. But consideration and compassion needs to work alongside with the rollout for struggling situations as well. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a slight spike in the contamination once it is rolled out because of people getting used to it. And I think that's been proven in other councils where they've rolled it out and they've go, oh my goodness, the contamination's got worse. But it's an education thing, and then people will get used to it and they will understand it. So understanding is the key in regards to that. It will be, in time, a better outcome for our community, but also for our environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Adam.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sally. Again, this is state government mandated. It's a bit vague in respect to the actual report we have here. I just want to read this. A number of our new items such as standard bin service, introduction of 4-bin glass bin, changing collection frequencies, medical exemptions, public litter bin service, multi-unit developments have been included in the updated policy to provide guidance for these elements of curbside service delivery. And across the page, it talks about the Victorian government recently announced its Recycling Victoria, a new economy policy. Under this policy, all Victorian households are getting access to services for four waste and recycling streams. Now, I understand it is guidance, but from what we've been told, it's actually mandated. So I'm saying it's a little bit vague in the description there, that's all. But that being the case, it is mandated, we have to do it. We shouldn't be concerned with why we're doing it, we should be concerned how we handle it, as Councillor Brophy said, and all the other councillors spoke to. We should be now concerned about how we roll it out, be interested in the feedback and react to it as necessarily we need to. So I just want to clarify that.
Thank you, Councillor Adam.
I just said, Councillor Summer, the word mandate doesn't appear in here, but from what I'm hearing, it is mandated.
Point of clarification again, 80% reduction in landfill is the target that's mandated. The frequency and all those things around it are not.
Correct.
Correct.
Or the way to get there is not.
Yes.
Great. You happy with that?
Thank you.
Anything else, Councillor Adam?
No, thank you.
Any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No? I will just very quickly, enough's obviously being said about the reasons why we have to and some clarifications that have been put forward there as well. But I think the most important thing that I want to get across is that we are going to go through this with community, and we are going to ensure that there's enough education out there and effectively walk side by side with you through this transition, which is going to be a big change for our community. We acknowledge that, and we feel that we're going to roll it out in the most appropriate way. We've got a director who has been through this before, so I have full confidence in him and our executive team to be able to work through those challenges that will come our way. But I'm really confident our community can buy into this, and I'm sure we'll get a positive outcome. And by the end of this, it'll be much better for everyone. So that's where I stand on it. Ryder, you, Councillor Abdullah? Or closing comments, Ryder reply.
Yes, very quickly, just to emphasize that basically, I mean, the purpose of this whole exercise is of course to divert waste from landfill, and also we are talking about circular economy. So let's not lose the focus on the end goal. And in terms of why we are changing the frequency, which is not mandated, well, I believe, and this is my personal understanding, that this is based on some best practice models. And there's enough auditing and data evidence was there. There was enough data evidence which showed that councils or municipalities where the green bins were collected weekly were showing better or much higher rate of diversion of waste from the landfills. So, as far as I'm concerned, it was my wish, it was my goal to see our council also follow this best practice model right in my first term, in the previous term, and this was something that I had been advocating for, to change the frequency of the green bin from fortnightly to weekly. And now it has happened and it didn't happen overnight. Council made all the necessary examinations and reviews and due diligence, and then has come up with this model. So as everybody has said, we want to make sure that our community comes along with us, and that's why we will make sure that the community engagement, communication to our community, and education part of this whole program is really robust, and in that way we hope that we will achieve good outcomes.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour?
Oh, no.
I tried.
All those in favour? Yeah. All those in favour? Against? Motion carried. Councillors, we now go to page 51 of the agenda, item 15, documents for signing and sealing. They'll receive. Page 52, item 16.1.1, councillor activities during January 2023. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Thank you, Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sali. The recommendation is that the council receive and note the summary of the councillor community interactions and formal meetings of councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Ladson. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, thank you, Mayor Sali. Looking at this is a period over December and January, you would tend to think that that'd be a quiet period of time for councillors and for a lot of people that go on holidays, etc. But looking at the number of activities, meetings and interactions that we've had with the community, I mean, I just had a quick count there, and I think I've been to 28 of those, which I know that I've been at with most councillors who were at the same thing. Yeah, you were there too, Councillor Adam, and it just goes to show what a group of councillors that we are to turn up in the holiday period time to the activities that we've been invited to and to other meetings as well. We are, as a council, that we show up, we listen up and we speak up. And well done to councillors for turning up for those last.
Very good, Councillor Murphy. Councillor Latson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. It's being the newest councillor on the council, we'll say. It's been refreshing to see from an inside perspective on the inner sanctum, I guess you'd say, just the amount of effort and passion that my fellow councillors have for the role that they've been elected to do. So, and you can look at the list of things that is on the agenda. That's it's heartwarming. Thank you.
I agree with you. Thank you, Councillor Latson. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? No? Any closing comments, Councillor Brophy?
No, thank you.
Councillors, will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 54 of the agenda, item 16.2, council committee reports nil received. Item 17.1, notice of motion 1, 2023, gender equity training. There is a recommendation. Can I please have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Spinks.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'd like to move the recommendation to a motion that all councillors undertake gender equity training as part of a council briefing within the next 2 months, organised by council utilising our professional development budget.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Abdullah.
Speak up.
Okay, yes, I second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, yes. So I'm going to kick it off by addressing the elephant in the room. Some may argue that I am putting this motion forward in response to recent experiences that I've spoken about. But I want to make it clear that while I have had gender-based experiences recently, they were simply the catalyst to the need for a notice of motion, not the need for the training. I have watched multiple women in local government all across Victoria experience barriers and challenges solely based on their gender, which shows to me that this work is needed across our sector. And this training has been informally requested multiple times with no action to date, so now I'm simply using the notice of motion process to bring this to a formal decision. And on the cusp of International Women's Day, I cannot think of a better time to bring this to the table. This year's International Women's Day theme is to imagine a gender-equal world, a world free of bias, stereotypes and discrimination, a world that's diverse, equitable and inclusive. Collectively, we can all embrace equity, and we must all do it together, because it's not about an individual, but about us as a collective. Our council staff and organisation are already doing excellent work in this space. We have local and state policies guiding and pushing for change. Internally, the council has a working group and has gender equity as a lens discussion at every level, and all council staff are offered this training already. And at the top of all of that are us, the councillors, who set the tone and direction for council and for our community. When councillors are elected, they do not suddenly become all-knowing. We continue to be flawed with bias and with strengths and weaknesses, but suddenly those flaws and biases have a power to impact others. And so we must do the work to unpack and unlearn. And we must practice what we preach and not be above doing the small work, because the small work is meaningful. And we often fall back to our code of conduct as the guiding document for how we treat each other and how we respect each other. But I argue that even this requires a gender lens, as the experience of respect can be subjective. In my life, I have known many men who say that they respect women, but that respect was actually conditional to the women behaving the right way. And conditional respect isn't respect at all, it is in fact control, which is a key feature of gender inequality and a reality that women navigate constantly. It is also a key reason of why we need men to do the work with us, because men that don't respect women will not listen to women. So we need good men to stand beside us and to be the change. Men are essential to gender equity. And I know that the topic of gender equity can often be met with resistance. A powerful quote I was sent recently is that when you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. If this conversation makes anyone feel uncomfortable or even offended, take a moment to explore why. Because that is exactly what we need to unpack and unlearn so that we can grow and move forward together. And there is so much to unpack and unlearn for all of us, not just for men. I am not immune to bias and I strive to constantly learn and to do better, as we all should. And in this role, we have an even greater responsibility because we are not simply community members, but decision makers. And what we bring to the table, our knowledge and our bias, impacts those decisions. Our work in this space cannot be performative. We can't just go to the events or conferences or committees and think that's enough. We have to really listen and to do the work, because in a world that was designed by and for men, there is a lot of work to be done. Women are half of our community, and we are guided by multiple documents to facilitate them. And when the Local Government Act requires us to consider the diversity of interests and needs of the municipal community, we must make sure that we have all of the tools needed to do that without bias. And you may note that I have not even yet mentioned gender equity and the intersectionality and non-gender binary lens that is also required to be considered. For example, we may talk about the needs of women, the binary and simplified generic distinction of the term, but what about the woman who is also Aboriginal and queer and has a disability and is a single parent? What do each of these distinctions mean to her? What do we assume about her? What do we expect of her? And most importantly, what decisions do we make on her behalf? Because this is not about politics, this is about people. Our mothers and sisters and friends and the women that we do not even know. And of course, the daughters who will grow up to be in the workplace, in sporting clubs, to need public facilities and policies, and maybe even to sit around this table. Every day, we discuss and make decisions on topics that require an essential gender lens. Affordable housing, sporting facilities, active and public transport, playgrounds and community facilities, domestic violence, all impact women substantially and differently to men. And this is not simply a one and done training. To unpack and unlearn a lifetime of behaviours and to change an entire societal system is an ongoing effort. And recognising that we need this further development to better serve each other and our community is not a criticism, but instead a call to strength. A strength to ourselves, to our community, and to local government more broadly. Because gender equity benefits us all, but it will not happen without doing the work, even if that work is as small but meaningful as a second training session, which, let us centre it back to, is all this motion is asking for. Let us do this further training together as a team and as a strength. Thank you.
Good, Councillor Spinks, thank you. Councillor Abdullah, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Ali. I just want to first of all thank Councillor Spinks for reminding us all about this training, because surely we have talked about the training. We have done one part of the training initially, but I think this is a topic that needs an ongoing sort of refresher course, because there are so many different aspects of this whole conversation that keep coming up, and we need to educate ourselves better. So first of all, I just want to also highlight that in this notice of motion, we are talking about gender equity. So it's very important to note the difference between gender equality and gender equity here. To be precise, gender equality is about practices that are promoting equal rights and conditions for men, women, and other genders, since we have agreed that gender is non-binary. And examples include equal pay, equal training opportunities, equal public toilet facilities, so forth and so on and so forth. Gender equity, as we are talking about gender equity here, it basically goes one step further, and it refers to practices that acknowledge that men, women, and other genders, they face different challenges, they face different barriers. They have access to resources and power dynamics, which is different in their cases, which is unique to their genders. And therefore, we seek to take steps to correct that. Achieving gender equity is a social justice goal. To be an inclusive, fair, and equitable society, we as council leadership also need to ensure that while supporting equality, we are also mindful of the unique set of challenges faced by different genders and proactively address these challenges and barriers. We must be mindful of why it is essential to include a gender lens when we are formulating policies, we are endorsing programs, and we are assigning budget allocations. So for this, I believe that leadership needs to proactively keep itself up to date with the evolving themes, as I've said before, and conversations when addressing gender equity. And that is why it is important to have a refresher training course on gender equity. It will be an opportunity to learn with an open mind about the conscious and unconscious biases, about the social disadvantages, about the stereotypes and prejudices that prevent men and women to operate on a level playing field. And it is so important to understand that. So, do we not all want to discuss the elephant, as Councillor Spence has rightly mentioned, and the elephant in the room about our own biases, and be able to have meaningful solutions for removing those biases and barriers, rather than ticking the box with words and no action. So I am fully supportive of this notice of motion. I am looking forward to the training and hope to see my fellow councillors' full and active participation in the training program when it is organised. Thank you.
Very good, thank you, Councillor Abdullah. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Saley. Firstly, well done, Councillor Spinks. I welcome the notice of motion and the training, but I actually think it could have even gone further, as you, I think, highlighted, to not only include gender equity, but cultural awareness training, sexuality, orientation, understanding, child safety and universal access training to be included as well. We as councillors included these training areas within our induction, and the midterm refresh would be advantageous to all. Council itself has provided us over a period of time here at Council with their own gender equity training, their employment and their workplace, number of male and female staff, the wage parities, full-time, part-time breakdown, where there are gaps, and the resources and the attitude and the intent to improve that equality. The day that this motion, notice of motion was emailed through was interesting, as it was the feast day of St. Joseph Bakita. Now, she is the patron saint of the survivors of modern slavery and human trafficking, and her life story was horrendous, but one of hope. Now, to most people, modern slavery and human trafficking is a third world situation of impoverished peoples, yet statistically there are more than 15,000 in that situation here in Australia. You don't necessarily see it, and this is what brings to my point. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So I therefore draw on the gender equity. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I am proud that I am on a council that adopts gender equity consciously and provides ongoing training to meet equality.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No? Councillor Summer.
Thank you. Initially, sorry, Councillor Spinks, but I did intend initially to vote against the motion because these usually are largely tick and flick exercises and they don't always result in better understanding. And we did already have what I considered to be an overload of training at the beginning. I believe all of these social issues being considered en masse dilutes the impact that it has. And I think perhaps we're deflecting from the actual topic here, which is gender equity. So I'm not sure you're going to love what I have to say, but yeah, I did witness some strong resistance against this norm when it was first raised, and that changed my mind about whether or not we needed this training, because now I really think that we do. It's not an us against them onslaught. I'm sensing a lot of defensiveness. I'm not sure where that comes from, and that's something else we might need to unpack during this, because gender equity is for both, well, for everybody on the gender spectrum. It's not perpetuating a gender war at all, it's deconstructing that. It is responding to concerns voiced by valued female councillors who do wish to disrupt those same gender biases that have perpetrated this council and every council probably since their inceptions. And I'm going to be generalising here, so please, but women do not necessarily have the safety net of that assumed brohood, and I'm probably completely out of line, but that is my experience. And I think it's wonderful that the men here have such tight relationships, but often, intentional or otherwise, women have been excluded. Everyone's looking at me like I'm saying, it's not meant as a criticism, it is just how I see things. But our lives are different. We have differing time constraints due to differing family roles, differing work commitments, differing domestic duties, differing priorities. We do not necessarily have a supportive partner or willing networks to assist us in performing our role. Again, generalising. These barriers are real to some, and they often go unnoticed, as said by Councillor Brophy. So on the flip side, and also very much in general, if we're looking at binary genders here, men are taught to embrace leadership from birth, generally. They're given confidence, skills and resources to suit high-level leadership roles. They have male role models by which to aspire to and hone their leadership style from a very early age. And the system of government itself is largely tailored for men's needs because historically it was men who built those systems. It's not a criticism, it is just a fact. So if we genuinely want diverse representation from our community, we must be aware that people who are not cis men often start from a long way back. These people, in my eyes, are warriors. They need to attain even higher goals. They do much of the heavy lifting, they learn themselves, they often double the work, they have to forcibly bang down doors just to remain relevant, try to be polite in the face of injustice, and are more heavily judged on physical appearance. Unconscious bias can label women as inexperienced, young, difficult, rude, or just plain inadequate. And I, for one, am extremely weary of those excuses because that's not the truth. So nothing changes if nothing changes, but with proper training and an open heart, we can expedite an alternative system, one that understands and embraces everyone, warts and all. And I think it's very telling that some call offence when this issue is raised. And to that, I say that I'm offended by your offence. I mean, offence seems like such an insincere and immature argument. It's almost being used subversively to shut down the debate. So for that reason, I'm actually very grateful to Councillor Spinks for offering an opportunity to express what we're prohibited from saying in our day-to-day interactions. It actually feels pretty good. So things have begun to improve for women, but things could also regress so quickly. And we still have such a long way to go. I can't expect all of us to have a clear understanding of how the patriarchy runs, but we certainly won't get anywhere near that understanding without training. So just in case there's any doubt at all, I fully support this motion and I'm looking forward to how we can work together as a team with a broader understanding of our own personal circumstances.
Very good. Well said, Summer. Are there any councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Adam.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sally. Look, listening to the other councillors, I've just eliminated about 80% of what I was intending to say. I'll only be repeating it, but what the hell, I'm going to repeat it anyway. Look, when Councillor Spinks first made her intention known to move this motion, I honestly thought it was unnecessary, as I was under the impression that this type of awareness training was subject to an automatic, periodic dating schedule, just like every other council policy and training that is regularly reviewed. However, I was incorrect in my assumptions, as gender equity training is currently conducted as a once-off requirement for all new councillors at the beginning of their 4-year council term. That said, the component was a welcome new addition as part of the new mandatory council induction implemented by the state government in 2020. Gender equity awareness is not a technical skill that can be learned once and moved on from, like learning to operate a piece of machinery or to navigate an app on your phone. It's an ongoing, evolving conversation that confronts old and new systemic biases that are still prevalent in our community. Tick and flick training may fulfil workplace legal requirements in the government and private sector. However, unless we conduct regular training, periodic training, almost auditing, if you will, we really have no way of measuring the effectiveness of previous training and cannot recalibrate and adjust future training accordingly. The term gender equity seems to generate a level of discomfort in some people, which I think can be best explained by the often heard phrase that Councillor Spinks mentioned before, that when you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. Gender equity is fundamentally about equal respect, equal opportunity, and equal empowerment. It sounds quite simple, because it is quite simple, and should be afforded to all humans, particularly in respect to employment, and especially in high-end executive and leadership roles. Although I do believe we have come a long way in levelling the landscape, I still hear the term merit-based used as an equalising factor in relation to a woman securing a position over a man. Consciously or unconsciously, a woman's perceived domestic obligations still can and does affect her equally meritorious status when competing for jobs. Culturally motivated, this generous description that I give it of unconscious bias has been a leash around the necks of women for far too long. As I said, it is changing for the positive, and this type of training, as put forward in this motion, is a reasonable, logical and responsible step in keeping councillors updated on local, national and international women's issues. But even more importantly, it will help all councillors understand that gender equity is far from accomplished, and ongoing awareness training will hopefully assist in unshackling our minds from ideas and prejudices that belong in another century. I want to be clear that I definitely include myself when I say unshackling our minds. As much as I believe I have a good understanding and comprehension of gender equity issues, the more conversations I have with women and men around this subject, the more I realise I'm quite ignorant of the many nuances surrounding this issue. As I outlined in the motion, the training is proposed to be part of our normal briefing schedule. However, without knowing exactly what form this may take, I am open to, as some of the other councillors have already said, and would support a version that could include personal presentations and testimonials from women from all sectors of our community who have a story to tell. I applaud Councillor Spinks for this initiative and fully support the motion. And just quickly in closing, if passed, I trust, as Councillor Brophy said, I trust it will set a precedent in moving forward, moving toward updated periodical awareness training in other areas such as Indigenous culture and any other diversity awareness training relevant to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Dobson.
Yes, so firstly, congratulations, Councillor Spinks, on your very elegant and well put point of view, and I endorse it wholeheartedly, and I thank you for it. I also, as always, listen to what Councillor Abdullah says, because we've been together on various committees for a number of years. I've never met a more stronger person to lead a community than Councillor Abdullah. So I couldn't think of two better people to nominate and second this motion. And there's no need, there's no debate about this. I mean, this is as plain as the nose on your face, that it's part of life. And it's part of life for over many years. It just doesn't happen overnight. And I would suspect that gender equity training will go on until the day we die, because we've never got to the end of the road in respect of. But it's an understanding and it's a participation role. And I'll be very happy to be part of that participation.
Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No? Very quickly, congratulations. I think it's great. Looking forward to doing it. I just really hope that the 2-month tight timeframe on trying to achieve it doesn't limit us on being able to get a really strong facilitator to put in a program that we can really get some benefit from. So hopefully Peter, our CEO, and the rest can try and find the best person that we can have here and take us through the appropriate training, that we don't try and rush it as soon as possible. So other than that, I think it's great, and we can see the positive feedback and really looking forward to it. Do you want any closing comments?
Just to say, thank you to everyone who contributed to this discussion today. I think that this is the start of what we will need to continue discussing. And I think it already has highlighted that we each bring such different perspectives to this conversation and to what gender equity means to us. And we all come at it from a very different place and very different stages of learning and unlearning. And I think that, again, just to reiterate, that this will serve, this will support us to both work together and to serve our community, and that is what this is all about. And I absolutely agree with the comments about this needing to not be a simple tick and flick item. And I'm very keen for this just to be the first step of a much more meaningful journey of gender equity learning, not just for our councillor cohort, but for all council terms. And not just for gender equity, but for all people-based and bias-removing trainings such as cultural and disability awareness trainings. Today, I feel that this is an achievable first step, and I hope that it can become a catalyst for greater things to come. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Spinks. We will now go to vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we now go to page 55 of the agenda, item 18, urgent business not included on the agenda. Nil received. Do we have any urgent business arising since the agenda? No. Item 19, close the meeting, which I'll do now at 4:23 p.m. Thank you.